All rise for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome tonight. We start off the meeting with talking about the employee of the month. This month is Mike Dunkirk. He's works as auto mechanic 2 position in the garage, and it's Ken Zay, who's his supervisor. Just he's a great mechanic. He can fix anything, and he just comes to work every day with an extremely positive attitude, and is always willing to do any task that he's assigned, which is fantastic. So, Mike, I want to congratulate you on being the Employee of the Month for May 2014, and great job. So, thanks. We've got public comment. Right now, we have 3 minutes. I've got a couple people who signed up already. Bruce?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the board, I hope you remember that I was here about 3 weeks ago. On April 22nd, I appeared before the board to present what 4 specific problems that I felt faced existing residents in the Halsey Neck Lane area, flood zone, where new construction had to be elevated due to FEMA regulations. And the problems, just to reiterate very quickly, I discussed the reduced floodplain and the increased flooding for existing properties, discussed the excessive height of new construction. I discussed the increased runoff onto adjacent properties and public roads due to inadequate drainage on elevated properties. And I discussed inadequate screening to retain the privacy of the existing properties. Having done some homework since then, I'd like to comment on each one of those. I found that FEMA regulations is beyond the village's control. It's no surprise. And I also believe that if we deal with the inadequate drainage situation on the elevated properties, it's going to require some engineering analysis to find a solution for each individual property. The screening issue is clearly one of enforcement. It's nothing more than enforcement. It's always there at the beginning, and then the screening seems to disappear over time, and nobody can do anything about it. The public road flooding is in the hands of the highway department, fortunately awaiting funds, as I understand it. But I think with no cost and no great expenditure of time, the height issue could be and should be dealt with immediately. I'd like to give you a layman's view of the specifics of the issue, and I'd like to show that the FEMA regulations have had a greater adverse effect on our village than all the other South Fork municipalities because of the way our regulations and rules are written. FEMA regulations for new construction of residential structures requires the structure to be elevated to or above the base flood elevation. And one of the methods for doing this is fill. I understand from the building department that this requires 3 feet of fill in the Halsey Neck Lane area. In the village of Southampton, prior to the application of maximum height restrictions, 2 feet of fill is allowed to raise the elevation of the property. This apparently has been interpreted to be 2 feet on top of the FEMA 3 feet. With the 35-foot height limit above the fill, the village of Southampton permits new construction in the flood zone to 40 feet above ground level. Compare this to the other South Fork municipalities. East Hampton, the village of East Hampton limits building heights to 32 feet with no bonus for fill. The villages of Southampton and Sag Harbor, the only 2 municipalities to allow residential buildings to reach a maximum of 35 feet, but only the village of Southampton allows the fill to be added to the lot prior to measuring the height restrictions. So by height above ground level, it's 40 feet for our village, it's 35 feet in Sag Harbor, it's 32 feet in the village of East Hampton, and somewhere in between for all the others. Now, of all the municipalities except Southampton, village of Southampton, also restrict the height above mean sea level. And this is a much more complicated calculation, and I'm not going to go through them, but I'm going to tell you it doesn't change the result. It has exactly the same implication, which is by all measures in the village of Southampton, the relative height of new residential construction compared to adjacent streets or neighboring properties in the flood zone is 5 to 8 feet higher than that allowed in any other South Fork municipality. Now, I'd like to ask the village to take action now. It can be done to correct this height situation, which is messing up our neighborhood, to be sure, and has the potential to get even worse as more new construction takes place in the flood zones. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody want to comment?
I do. Can
Yeah.
I ask Rick a question? Rick, back in the Troopin lawsuit, it came to light that the village didn't have any rules at the time on raising the level of the ground around a building and therefore lowering the height of a building. And I know at that time legislation was, once they realized they didn't have something to deal with this, that all measurements would be made from the original grade. And I don't know if that's changed over the years or not, but I'm really certain of it. It was a big deal. And so I'm kind of startled to find out that I thought maybe FEMA just supersedes everybody else, and if they say you can raise the grade 3 feet, but I still would have stuck with 35 feet from the original grade was, and that all measurements, you know, if you have a lesser, you know, a 32-foot zone or something like that, it would apply to them too. But does that ring any bells with you?
There is something in the present code on that subject. I don't remember off the top of my head exactly what the language is or how the building department might interpret it. I thought this was something that we were going to have the
Planning Commission.
Commission look at.
Yeah.
As,
Well, even the
But we need to do
the
it on
larger
this as
lots,
well.
yeah.
I mean, if you want to separate that from the general height and ask them to look at the particular stuff having to do with, you know, raising the grade and in relation to FEMA and all that, they don't have to look at them both and do them both fully at the same time. They can take a look at each item, each matter separately. But I think we should have the Planning Commission look at it.
Yeah.
And probably discuss it with the building department.
Mm-hmm.
Get a recommendation from them.
Well, I think they were looking at the small lots,
They were.
Yeah,
but now we really
But
should
this
have
is a
them
very good
also on a
point.
Sure.
separate,
yeah, it makes sense, because it's
Right.
raising it way up above when you
because
add the others in.
you're very correct on a lot of the stuff, especially along Dune Road,
Right.
with the FEMA requirements. I think they're certainly higher than 3 feet. You know, there's a lot of fill going in there.
Yeah, so I think it's, like, I'll set a meeting up with John Foster, and
Yep.
and Paul Travis. You know, he's gonna be out here next week, but, next Friday or something, we
Yeah.
can get something together.
Yeah, we should separate the
Yeah.
two, because they are two different issues, really.
And the drainage is a complicated thing, but this height thing, I think, is a very simple, you know, either we want to change it and can change it, and then if you want to change it, but we could do it and before somebody throws up another one of these.
But I think on the drainage, I
Skyscrapers.
mean, and I know this has been your problem. I mean, there's always been flooding there, but since they've raised the grade on a lot
That's
of
the
these
issue.
properties that are relatively new, I mean, obviously, a higher property, when you have a very bad rainstorm, water will run to its lowest point. So it's really made it worse than what it was years ago. But I think when you have a situation like that, and I'm kind of surprised that we haven't really looked into this, but if someone is applying for a building permit and they have to raise their property based on FEMA, there has to be drainage on their property. Because if that, but it should be, what I'm saying, we should require some drainage on their property. Because if in fact that water is, we have a really bad rainstorm, that water is running and it's going in the direction of its lowest point, there has to be something there to collect it. So, you know, that's something else that has to be put into that as well.
That's, if I'm sorry, Do you want me to be up here?
Yeah, why don't you come on up so we can get it for the record.
That's half of the problem. The other half is, and I don't think we can do anything about it, but just so you understand, every property that's raised 3 feet reduces the floodplain.
Okay.
So it's exacerbated by the drainage failures on when we have Shinnecock decide to connect with Agawam. It hasn't been a problem, but it is a problem. And of course, if any of us have listened to what happened in Washington 2 nights ago, we've got a big problem coming up, and this is just the start of it. So might as well deal with some of the little problems first.
Are you referring to
think the
the
building
big
department
problem
may
of weather?
already-
Yeah, the weather problem.
One of the other big problems.
Yeah, I mean, what's going to happen in our part of the world, according to
Yeah,
this
no, I
report, is we're going to have a lot of
Expanding
big
city.
rainstorms.
It's my recollection that the building department
They do require.
already requires drainage in the
Yeah, they do.
floodplain zone, because you need I forget what it's called, a floodplain some type of floodplain permit in order to do that stuff. And so I think they do require drainage.
But do they require road drainage?
They-
I'm talking
they-
about drainage on the property. Because if it
No.
reaches the road, what
Yeah,
good is it?
I'm
No,
talking
it's
about drainage on the
property
property.
drain.
Okay.
You're supposed to retain all your runoff on your property.
I have a
Not happening.
recollection.
It's not happening. I can watch. One of the pictures I gave to you just showed it running down onto the road,
That doesn't happen.
and doesn't help. And I've seen some places where they have those, I call them ha-has, but they're where you keep the cows from walking.
Yeah, French grains.
Yeah, they've got those in some of the properties. That's to
That
be
doesn't
sure,
work.
but that's
They don't
too late.
work.
That doesn't work.
And we
But I
make
think
them put it on the
I'm
road.
sure they
and they're putting it in curbing, right?
'Cause I have a recollection of one case where there was an approval granted by the building department, and I think it was the neighbor didn't like,
It's the cat's house
Yeah.
down on Meadow Lane.
yeah, and they appealed to the zoning
tons of-
board
Yeah.
from the building department's determination, and the zoning board went through hearings.
Right.
We had, there was lots of testimony about drainage, et cetera, and we ended up, zoning board ended up upholding the plans that if I remember right, that the building department had approved. Or maybe there was some modifications to the plans during the course of.
They put a ton of, because they had to bring
Yeah.
the height of the house up to meet the FEMA.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they put drainage throughout that entire property, and that's why I'm surprised I was surprised by that picture that you brought in, that showed the flow there, because I know that a lot of the homes in there have to, because they always say you should be able to retain what falls on your roof, you retain on your property, and then you drive. And I know that that's one of the things that they
Yeah,
focus.
I don't know where it's retained then, because there's no tanks visible. There's nothing
Okay.
visible any place. And I've lived in a lot of places where we had to have tanks, and you restored them, and you had to pump it in, and then you put in the irrigation system. So I know what it looks like.
Yeah.
And maybe we do have the regulations, but something's not happening right.
As far as putting drainage on roads, that's only required when the person wants to put in curbing, right?
And they put in curbing, because
So, because it collects and doesn't
Yeah.
run off into
Right.
it, so.
if it's 100 feet, we have in the regulation, our code, that if it's 100 feet of Belgian block, that, or any type of curbing, that they have to put
50.
some type of,
Is it every 100 or?
it's either 100
It's
or,
somewhere.
or 50. They have to put some type of drainage in to collect that. But that big area, I know that that's part of our plans, was built into the Halsey Neck, that whole area, because we had that, it was built into our budget this year for a capital improvement project. Several hundred, like $200,000 put in for drainage.
we're getting near the top of the list. I think you had.
No, you were.
You had Meadow Lane, and then you had Lee Avenue.
Lee Avenue is fixed, unbelievably.
Yes,
But
yes. Yeah, they did a nice job over there, but you guys are at the top of the list there, that Halsey Neck project, right in by Boatman Lane and the flow over there. It's
Well, we appreciate that.
but we gotta work on the other part, yeah. Yeah, I know. No, we got a whole, so, Michael and I are gonna meet with the building inspector and the chair of the planning commission, and we will talk about.
Mark?
And that meeting, I'll
Yes,
be glad to.
yeah.
Mark, is there such a thing as putting a hold on anybody trying to build a 38-foot high house until we resolve this issue? Can you do that? Hold them in abeyance? We're studying the situation, and because you just don't want somebody sneaking under the wire. And we took
The M word? Is that the
Yeah,
M word?
I don't really like
The
the
M
M
word sneaking
word.
up?
He's not a,
There are always
Yeah.
complications with doing that kind of.
Then we should move quickly.
You're better off moving quickly.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
agreed.
Okay. Susan?
Well, speaking of moving quickly, what about the multiple family plan development district now that the project was not approved for many reasons over there? Can you get rid of that law?
Well, we're going to study that to see, because there might be situations where that, right there actually might be a benefit. And it could
To
be
whom?
to truly affordable housing opportunity, to a truly senior housing opportunity for people. So there are some properties that are in this area that might fall into that. So we're looking at that. In a situation, look, that property right there, that project
I know.
didn't fall into either one of those categories. So that's the only reason why we're taking a moment to look at that.
Okay. Okay, but what I really came here was to discuss what I think are kind of abusive practices by landscaping companies. Leaf blowers, they use leaf blowers that are not for, they use industrial leaf blowers in residential neighborhoods. I called the ordinance, I called the police, but they put me to the voicemail of the ordinance inspector. And I left him a detailed message saying, could you tell me how this works or how you can enforce it? And I received no reply. In the past week, at 7:45 in the morning, 3 EBZ 7500 Red Max industrial leaf blowers were going at the same time on a small property near me. This happens every year. I think I might come here every year, but I'm not giving up. And I just think it's too much noise, and I think it really does make the quality of life issues, it's a problem. Then, 10 minutes later, I get in my car and drive down Little Plains, and there are two guys, and they're just blowing the stuff across the street to the other guy's property. So that then, when that guy gets out here, or their people, they're just going to blow it back. Are you allowed to blow all your leaves and twigs? I live on a flag lot. This would not affect me. Are you allowed to do that? And also, I think the cones, those big trailers, and the parking, I mean, if you have a construction site, you have to get permits to park there. It's extremely dangerous. Those are my 3 points. I'd love to know how enforcement takes place. There is a rule about 70 decibels. I have a decibel reader on my phone now, and I go around like this when I'm walking. But it's a real problem, and I really think that it doesn't have to be as bad as it is. That's all I have to say.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Susan?
We should take a look at those
Yeah.
leaf blowers, because they, you know,
Well, the chief,
We-
would you like to
They're
comment?
not allowed to use them from Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Memorial Day to Labor Day, is that the, I mean, I know we had some restriction somewhere, that's what it was.
Because I think it's May 15th to September 15th.
Oh, it's May 15th.
Yeah.
I thought it was Memorial
So like the
Day.
parking things?
Yeah, it is a problem, especially the parking,
Yeah,
because, you know, driving around, sometimes you'll have them opposite each other,
right,
and they, for some reason, they can't seem to figure out to park offset, and they
okay.
create bottlenecks, so we are out there doing what we can. The leaf blower law is kind of tough to enforce, although I understand why and like how it works. But to do a noise investigation, as it's called, in court takes hours, and the guy's never there for hours.
Right.
So I think we should look at the law and maybe tweak it so it's better for us to make it enforceable.
Well, I mean, the law, I think, is pretty clear from construction activity before 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
Is
that's an easy
thing
one, yeah.
The noise law, you know, it's, instead of us getting the decimal meter out, which is always a problem, and it's the piece and,
Yeah, we should get something along those lines with the,
with the,
you know, all the machinery, like the light, I guess they call it light industrial.
okay.
Because like an air conditioner, like even our decibel, if you have it, like we had the first thing we did on this was central air. A guy had like 3 or 4 units when he renovated his house. The next door neighbor liked to keep the windows open. You need octave band analysis to do that, which is in the code, but we don't have the ability to even measure it. It's a different meter, it's a different class, so I mean, that noise ordinance, I think should be revisited to make it more enforcement friendly.
Is there a date on the leaf blowers?
Let me
Or
just comment on that, because the reason why years ago we put in the decibel stuff was because the general stuff in the code is, as a practical matter, not very enforceable. There were lots of cases, I'm not involved in because I don't do the prosecutions, but there were a number of cases where the village issued summonses and took people to court for violating the noise ordinance under the general language standard. And the court, there were a number of cases where the court dismissed them, finding that the evidence was insufficient to establish a violation. So we put in the decibel law. I mean, the general law is very subjective in nature, and courts don't like subjective standards. So we put in the decibel law so that we would have a clear-cut, simple enforcement thing where, as long as you have your decibel program and your meters and people to utilize them, now that does involve more work, but at least it's a clear-cut case of a violation if you come into court with proof of the decibel limit violation. There's no subjectivity at all.
Yeah, the only problem with it is you just can't walk up, like we have, like say, tent meter for the window of a car. But as long as the tent meter is calibrated, you put it on the window, it reads what it reads, and if it's over the limit, you write the summons. The noise, the way New Jersey tends to be the leader in this, and because of the court cases in New Jersey, it's evolved into this big project to do this correctly. I guess we could not follow their methodology and see how it goes. But, when you go to the school, which is at Rutgers University, they want you to follow their model, and their model is pretty tough to follow.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we can, not for the leaf blowers, but for some of the other stuff, maybe we can, they do a lot of noise abatement, like when you renovate your house or whatever, you have to consider noise pollution to your neighbors, and there's stuff you can put in like fencing and so on that will block the noise and keep it back in your yard to some degree. So it's worth looking at.
Okay.
Hasn't the technology improved somewhat so that you could, I have
It has.
Maybe
has.
we could move in that direction. And also, I would like to deal with, like in New York City, there's a cumulative part. 1 leaf blower might be okay, but 3 isn't.
Right.
Actually, the way the noise stuff works, it's not really it's exponential. It's not 5 decibels more is actually twice as loud when you perceive it. So
but when you get 3 of them going, isn't it?
What I'm saying to you, I'm agreeing with you. Like, say it's 50 decibels, and it's whatever you perceive that noise to be. When it gets to 55, you perceive it to be twice as loud, even though it's only 5 more decibels. So,
I got it. And also, the machinery that they use is much,
Well,
it used to be that it was a little thing. Now they're bigger and better.
You can buy muffled machinery, they just don't.
They don't. But it's because, so that's part of the problem, I think.
And that probably might be our most enforceable component,
What?
is the type of equipment they use.
Oh,
I don't know if that's
hey,
it,
that's
if
easy.
there's a
Can we
way to
tell
get
them?
into something like that, I don't know.
Can we?
Maybe.
If it's
Can we
not on
outline
full,
what
it
they
probably
use?
isn't enforceable. I've looked up the
don't
decibel
know.
levels of these things. I take pictures of them. Well,
Right.
Well, you knew the exact make and model of what these three guys are walking around
the
with
make,
at
the model,
7
the
o'clock in
color?
the morning. So, I'm sure
don't
you,
just think I'm exercising
oh, no,
anymore.
well. So,
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone who could help, I'd be so
okay,
thrilled.
all right, thanks.
Thanks, Chief.
Anyone else from the public would like to speak? Okay, so we're gonna close the public comment here. No board presentations, no public hearings. We've got some communications to the board.
The first one's from the Chamber of Commerce. First and foremost, on behalf of the Board of Directors, I would like to take this opportunity to extend our warmest thanks for allowing us to use the Southampton Arts Center in Coopers Beach, along with your continued support of our annual events. Last year's Farmers Market was a great success, beginning our season Sunday, Memorial Day weekend, and remaining open until 2 p.m., along with operating on all holiday weekends, played a huge role in that accomplishment. The historical grounds, wonderful vendors with their extensive selections, along with the background music provided by Scott Hobson, created the perfect setting for a Sunday destination for so many. Offering the EBT program as an additional form of payment was also well received and assisted in providing healthy choices for those in need. For the 2014 season, again, we'd like to promote additional local music talents and offer food and beverage pairings to increase the interest in our market. We're looking to pursue additional family-friendly activities, i.e. occasional small contained petting zoo and pet adoption van on separate occasions, be located in a public parking lot to the north of the market grounds. Our plan is to extend our educational participants to include Stony Brook and Cornell once again, but also other local nonprofits, charities to assist in raising awareness. We would also like to include fire prevention safety demonstrations through the Southampton Fire Department. Unfortunately, this year we will not be featuring our 5th season of Drive-In Movie Mondays at Coopers Beach. We've been informed by Michelle Thompson that the Southampton Arts Center will be offering 8 free family-friendly movies Friday nights beginning June 27, 2014. This has raised significant concern, therefore, due to the financial commitment involved, it's not feasible for us to compete. Attached, please find a listing of all events scheduled for 2014 for your review and approval. Thank you for your consideration, Karen Conley. They're looking for the farmers market from Sundays, May 25th to October 12th, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on West Side grounds of the Southampton Arts Center, 25 Jobs Lane. Wednesday, October 1st, Paint the Town Pink and kick off Breast Cancer Awareness Month tree lighting ceremony at 6:30 p.m. in front of the chamber. Sunday, October 26th, 24th Annual Ragamuffin Parade, Pumpkin Trail, 1 p.m. begins the parade, march from Agawam Park, north on Windmill Lane, east on Nugent, south on Main Street, then west on Jobs Lane. During the parade, judges will award best costume winners with prize tickets to be redeemed at the chamber office after the parade. Halloween props provided by Hank's Pumpkin Town will be set up at Agawam Park for photo opportunities. In case of rain, the parade will be held in the ballroom at the Southampton Inn. Immediately following the parade is a pumpkin trail where children trick-or-treat in the safety of the village merchant community. Saturday, November 29th, 15th Annual Winter Parade of Lights Parade commencing at dark, 4:45 p.m. We'll invite the Southampton Fire Department and other neighboring fire departments to hold a parade of decorated fire trucks. This will be in conjunction with the village's decorating committee tree lighting ceremony at 5:15. The trucks will proceed north on Windmill Lane, east on Nugent Street, south on Main, and then west down Jobs Lane to Agawam Park. And Saturday, December 6th, Southampton's It's a Wonderful Village. This day will consist of an all-day holiday stroll with horse and buggy rides, carolers, and hopefully other various performers strolling the village streets.
Hey, the only thing is, I know that we're trying to reestablish the grass on the western side of the
Right.
of the at 25 Jobs Lane. Maybe is there going to be overseeding some of that in there and
I'll check with Larry on
putting the sprinkler system in?
I know the system's in already.
Right. So maybe for a short period of time, they need to be on the eastern side
Okay.
of the grounds.
Okay.
At least probably until the first part of summer, when so a lot of that grass got worn out.
Yep.
And I know that they're going to have St. Paul around to trim out the trees and stuff there to get more sunlight into the ground
Okay.
to help out with the grass in that area.
All right. I'll check with Larry in the morning on that.
Okay. All right. So, I'll make a motion to authorize the Chamber of Commerce to hold their events according to their letter dated April 30th, 2014. With the exception, we'll discuss the side of the building for the farmer's market on a temporary basis.
You got it. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item is from Marius on a Mission. They would like to hold a bake sale this Sunday in front of Village Hall. The home-baked goods like cookies and macaroons be donated to the American Cancer Society, and it'll be 11 to 3:30 on Sunday.
Make a motion.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we have a letter from Southampton Public Schools. Every year, over 5,000 communities host the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life. Relay for Life brings communities together to honor cancer survivors, remember loved ones lost, and fight back against cancer. Relay for Life teams raise money for the American Cancer Society to research all types of cancer and to provide information and services to cancer patients and their caregivers. This year, Southampton High School will be hosting Relay for Life on Friday, May 23rd. The event will begin at 5 p.m. Friday night and will last until 6 a.m. Saturday morning. We invited teams from other schools and organizations to participate in this great event. Teams will camp out on the turf field at Southampton High School. Overnight, we would like to request that all parking restrictions on Narrow Lane be suspended Friday afternoon through Saturday morning. We would also like to have permission to allow parking on Narrow Lane overnight, as attendees will be participating throughout the night. On behalf of our volunteers and participants, we would like to thank you and the entire village board for your support as we host this great event. Thank you for your consideration and assistance. Nick Burke.
I'd like to make a motion to lift the parking restrictions on Narrow Lane in accordance with the letter dated May 8th, 2014 from Southampton Public Schools.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolutions, item 1, resolved that the reading of the minutes for the work session of April 22nd, 2014 be dispensed with, that those minutes be accepted as filed by the village administrator, and that the actions taken at that meeting be and hereby are ratified and approved. Have a
So
motion?
moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the claims to the warrants dated May 8th, 2014 totaling $350,073.36, warrant 15 general fund, $97.81, and $11,468.96, warrants 24 and 12 trust fund, and $12,892, warrant 12 capital reserve fund, and the village payrolls for the period ending May 1st, 2014 be ordered and approved. Got a motion?
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. General fund warrant, Atlantic Coast Broideries, 2 payments, $1,256.50 and $1,281.64. These are polo shirts for the police department along with the broidering. Bartlett Tree Experts, tree trimming, $4,704. CSE Employment Benefit Fund, May premium, $22,528. Page 3, the solar well drillers drilling a well at the DPW for the washdown station, $6,985. Gas Productions, April Services, $1,461.65. John Coors, Fire Department Medical Reimbursement, $1,000. Page 4, City Energy Services, Streetlight Fixtures, $4,247.50. Cleary Consulting, Planning for 132 McGee, $1,725. Cook Marin, Fire Department Insurance Installment, $22,448. William Culler, Fire Department Volunteer Medical Reimbursement, $1,000. Page 5, Jonathan Ford, Medical Reimbursement, $1,000. GenServe, Maintenance on the PD Generator, $1,100. Page 6, flowing on to page 8, Herrick Hardware, April Supplies, $1,591.72. Johnson Electrical Construction, Traffic Signal Maintenance for April, $1,350. Eltron Corporation, PD equipment for 3 new police cruisers, $21,2130. Long Island East Printing Calendars for the Fire Department, $1,650. Page 9, Messiano Consulting Services through April, $3,584.84. Page 10, Moore Medical Ambulance Supplies, $1,410.42. Morgan Auto Supply, flowing on to page 11, Parts for the Garage, $3,190.25. National Grid, April bill, $2,180.86. Page 12, Nelson Pope and Voorhees, Planning Services, $1,456.73 and $1,625.65. Site Plan Review, $6,240.60, and Zoning Services, $1,994.67. Nextel Communications, cell phone bill for April, $1,319.58. Norsec and Sons Highway Carting for April, $4,519.80. Page 14, Pitney Bowes, mail services for the fire department, $1,520.99. PSEG, Long Island, electric bill, For buildings, $1,191.89. For streetlights, $1,318.16. Another one for the building department, $2,597.49. And page 15 for the police department, $4,464.36. Rapid recovery services for towing services for March, $1,953. Page 16, Revco electrical supplies, $1,744.07, and street lighting supplies, $2,463.45. Page 17, Riverhead building supplies, primarily supplies for the village hall renovation, $3,604.01. RoboView mounting equipment, and RoboView again for computer commitment for the new vehicle at the PD, $1,034 and $16,220. Rockland custom cabinets, command cabinet for the new Tahoe for PD, $3,645. Ronco cleaning supplies, $2,238.88. Page 18, Sadie Levine, CPA's audit of the Justice Court for the year ending May 2013, $4,250. Page 19, Suburban Auto Services, 2 payments for PD vehicle damage, one which was deer hit, $1,081.81 and $2,022.02. Suffolk County National Bank, principal and interest payment on the World War I Village Hall renovation bond, $131,667.50. Press Newspaper Group, payment towards the September Fest 2014 new logo design ad for the upcoming event this next Friday, $5,000. Vince Toomey, April legal fees, $5,128.44. Page 20, Toomey, Latham and Shea, Metro PC, Tyco Integrated Security, services for 25 Jobs Lane for the quarter, $1,455.42. United Metro Energy, 2,800 gallons of gas, $8,025.92. Verizon PD phone bill for April, $1,007.05. VHB, 2 payments on the Safe Routes to School grant, $1,582.02 and $1,422.09. James Walsh, Fire Department reimbursement, $1,000, and Mark Westerhoff, medical reimbursement, $1,000. Trust warrant, Mary Ann Epley reimbursement for memorial stones for the dog park, $1,274.15. Liberty Ironworks, down payment towards the dog sculpture, was $6,175. NPC Carpentry, deposit for the bulletin board at the dog park, $1,125. And Riverhead Building Supply, $1,748.15. Supplies for the retaining wall at the dog park. All this money was paid by donations. Capital Reserve warrant, Automated Logic HVAC service contract for the Hampton Road Firehouse, $1,898. Island Tech Services, a server upgrade for the fire department, $3,950. 2 payments to Jade Construction. One is a payment towards the elevator shaft, $3,950. And Jade Construction is a 10% deposit for the fire stairs out the back of the building, $3,454. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the attached schedule of budget transfers to remain overages for the period April 23rd, 2014 through May 8th, 2014. Have the motion?
Make that.
Second? Second. Discussion. Item 1 is 4215 to order the contractual, 28,000 to clerk personal, 6,000 to DPW personal, 8,000 to building personal, 6,000 into building supplies, 7,000 into buildings utility, 3,000 into garage contractual, 4,000 to garage supplies and material, 2,000 to traffic control contractual, and 30,000 employee benefits Social Security, with 1,250 coming from garage personal, 47,000 from trustee special projects, and 50,000 from employee benefit medical. Next one is 1,000 to legal contractual coming from legal personal. Next one is 2,000 to clerk contractual from clerk part-time. Next one is 3,000 to police equipment, 5,000 to police utilities, 3,000 into police miscellaneous, with 11,000 coming from police contractual. Next one is 10,000 to radio operators overtime from personal services. Next one is 1,000 to building inspectors part-time from fire marshal contractual. Next one is 24,000 to street maintenance personal services, 5,000 to street maintenance contractual, 1,000 to street clothing, with 15,000 coming from street maintenance supplies and 15,000 from fuel. Next item is planning personal services, 1,000 in, 1,500 ARB contractual, 2,500 to zoning contractual, 12,000 to planning contractual, with 1,000 coming from ARB personal, 1,000 from planning commission personal, and 15,000 from trustee special projects. And the last one is 1,700 into principal, coming from debt service interest. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 4, resolve the Board of Trustees approve the hiring of Anadra Browning as a grasshopper for the Parks Department at an hourly rate of $11. Do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5, whereas an intermunicipal agreement, Suffolk County Law Number 13-EE 006 was fully executed on May 11th, 2012 for this project, and whereas due to the effects of Superstorm Sandy during the end of 2012 and the strain that was put on village staff, the village was unable to complete the stormwater improvements before the expiration of the original contract term on December 31st, 2012. Whereas the Suffolk County Attorney's Office has determined that since the original contract has expired more than 6 months ago, a new resolution and a new IMA is required for this project. Whereas the amount of funding has not changed, there is no change in the scope of work for this project, and whereas a letter from the Village of Southampton dated April 16, 2013 was received by this county to certify that all Phase 2 work has been completed, and whereas there remains funding for this project that currently lies in Suffolk County Capital Projects number 8240.118, 12,500, and 8240.3227, 127,500. Now therefore be it that a new intermunicipal agreement will be drafted by the Suffolk County Attorney's Office between the County of Suffolk and the Village of Southampton. It will extend the term of the original IMA through September 30th, 2014. Be it further resolved that the Village of Southampton affirms that all the provisions of Suffolk County Resolutions numbers 909-2011 and 123-2013 shall remain in full force and effect. And be it further resolved that the Village Board authorize the Mayor to enter into said intermunicipal agreement with Suffolk County. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second. I don't think you had enough whereas.
I didn't write
Counselor,
it.
is this your writing?
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of
Just-
Trustees.
Well, actually, Nancy wanted to get more information on that, the IMA. It's just an IMA extension is all it is.
That's all it is, right?
Yeah.
We've already
Yeah.
did it on the drainage project, but it's just that we ran out of, the timing with the
Okay.
Hurricane Sandy
That way
issues.
we can tap into that available funding that's,
Right.
yeah.
So whereas we're extending it.
Whereas we're extending it, yes.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees accept the performance bond for Hampton Road Realty LLC, 20 Hampton Road, the amount of $15,000 as recommended by John Foster, Building Inspector. Have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, discussion items. Village Hall, the outside stairs, we had authorized J Construction to do the stairs at $30,000. Mark had additional comments from John Foster and Dean McNamara on the width of the stairs. They had to extend the width of the stairs, which increased the contract to $34,540. Still the lowest amount that's being bid here. We just want to go forward with that.
Okay.
All right?
Need a resolution on that, so I'll make a motion to accept the bid of Clark and Wilkins,
J Construction.
sorry, Jade Construction, $34,540 for the outside stairs for Village Hall.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Is this the one they agreed to do at the original price, but just,
It was 30, but
30.
they just had to,
so they expanded the price,
Right.
same company, just
same
moved
same
up the-
design, just
bumped
a
up the
little bit
price
wider.
to cover.
Right. Last meeting, we discussed the concept of issuing commercial parking permits with a $10 fee, and Rick had raised the issue with regard to whether this should be shifted over to the building inspector's office in order to monitor these items, since they have a better handle on the construction projects, and with the purveyance of Angel, to watch out for the parking around the tree beds. I did have a conversation with John Foster with that, and he's perfectly fine with taking over the commercial parking regulations from Village Hall over to the building inspector's
Did you
office.
know with outside the lines here?
Yes.
So,
Actually, I think it's still, it's better for it to be in the village clerk's office and get coordination from the building department before it's granted.
And the reason for that?
Pardon?
And the reason for that? Why you think it's better here than there?
Because it's something, number one, that's always been handled by the village clerk's office. It's something that we're talking about all kinds of parking exemptions, not just an exemption
Well,
for
we
commercial.
would still keep the residential and the parties and such as we do now. I mean,
What I had
that's-
mentioned was that sometimes there are conditions in Board of Appeals, wetlands permits or variances that have specific conditions that say all parking has to be on site. And what I don't want to see happen is a parking exemption being granted that violates a condition that the zoning board of appeals has imposed. So what I was suggesting was that before the village office grants a parking exemption, that they check with, they'll send it over to the building department to check and see if it violates, if there are any, zoning board or other conditions that apply.
Well,
Can't you
couldn't they just
send,
do that there while they're there? That's what I'm
Yeah.
confused about.
Okay, I don't want to create a situation where, okay, how am I gonna put it? I don't want to create a situation where the building department thinks that they can
and override?
override the zoning board.
Okay.
And I'm afraid that if this whole thing is given to them, they'll think that they have the authority to override the zoning board.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, can't you submit the request for parking to the building department
absolutely.
for review?
Mhm.
And they can make any
The only
adjustments?
concern I have with, I don't mind doing it, I understand exactly where Rick is coming from. The only concern I have is just the timeliness of the response. Because a lot of the time, these guys come in, starting
And they
tomorrow
want
and doing this
instant-
job, and,
right.
it might take 2 or 3 days, I mean, sometimes, especially like on a Monday, you can't even get them on the phone over there, they're so crazy.
Yeah.
So that's my only hesitation, but, we'll just have to say, until we get an answer back from the building inspector's office, you're not gonna get the exception.
Right.
We can do it that way.
I think we're better off
I think we are.
doing it that way, and if it becomes unmanageable, well, you don't have to grant parking exemptions.
Right.
So,
You can say no.
We get yelled at when we do that.
But it's interesting, even with the landscapers and stuff, and these massive parades that they come in with to
Oh, yeah.
blocking off and shutting the roads down and stuff, so.
Personally, the work's being done on that yard, wherever the work is being done, I think that's the yard that should be destroyed and parking all there, not on
Well,
the
it's,
street and not neighbors,
I had to run down to the heliport the other day, and that one building, that's that glass house that's being built on the
In the
bay
corner.
side. They parked on both sides of the street, and they were double parked on the westbound lane, so there's only one lane getting by.
Well, see, that's when the police should go down
Same.
and write tickets on everybody down.
Yeah. It's absolutely crazy.
I mean, I know the
20,
job
30
has to be
trucks.
done, but
Yeah.
still, it's, it's just,
So,
it was pointed out, the equipment's huge, and the trailers, and it's just,
Mhm.
and for some reason, as the chief pointed out, they don't seem to be able to get the concept of staggering their parking. They seem to want to park right across from one another, leaving one lane. But even still, that's landscaping. With the construction, it amazes me how they inconvenience the rest of the neighborhood by parking all over the place, where in my opinion, wherever that work is being done, that's the yard that should be crowded up with all equipment, parking, workers and such. And then it's their responsibility to fix their yard afterward,
Right.
not the village to fix the side of the roads and for the neighbors to have to go through that. I think,
I agree with that.
that's gotten out of hand.
Right.
I think that's part of the other stuff.
All right. So I'll leave it over here, and I'll set up a,
yeah, 'cause
communication link.
and I think we should be doing some type of colored,
Well, I have the, we
Yeah.
put together those green,
Right.
what we're using
That
now,
right there,
and
yeah.
they're pre-numbered, so we're
Yeah.
keeping track of that. Question is, just whether we were gonna impose a $10 fee on that, and then where it was gonna be controlled.
okay? Well,
Are there dates on that? Is it for a certain period of time? or is
We're
it-
doing it for 30 days. I have to come in for renewal.
okay. All right.
I mean, the big problem with a lot of this in the landscapers, I mean, you have some neighborhoods that are smaller lots, but yet they have a landscaper, and they're entitled to have a landscaper. The roads are narrow, and, they can't park on the property. Basically, that's it. They can't. So, but they should know that if there's a truck on the road, they don't put another one on the other side of the road so that you can't get through, or it's only one lane. They have to stagger them, and that's what we were discussing before.
I mean, you don't want to be in front of the yard they're working on. I understand that, but they gotta walk, you know, they gotta transport, you know, then so be it.
So we have this resolution that Rick had written up here.
This one? You didn't resubmit it inside the lines?
I wasn't asked to.
Oh, I thought I made that clear last
Well,
time.
you didn't have a majority vote of the board.
Oh, okay.
Just kidding.
Rick, do you want to read your handwriting? I mean, your resolution?
Resolve that authority to grant a temporary parking exemption, permit a temporary exemption from a no parking regulation contained in Chapter 110 of the Village Code, close paren, for hardship or other good cause, is hereby delegated to the village clerk, paren, including an employee designated by the village clerk, close paren, in accordance with the following provisions, colon, the village clerk may determine the form of application for an exemption and the form of the document evidencing the grant of an exemption, paren, such as a letter or certificate or permit, close paren, may establish conditions and limitations incident to granting an exemption, and may revoke an exemption prior to expiration thereof. In the case of application for an exemption for a vehicle used for commercial purposes, an application fee shall be paid in the amount of,
I think $10.
the amount of $10 per man or such other amount as the Board of Trustees may hereafter establish from time to time by resolution, close paren, for each commercial vehicle involved in the application.
Not one whereas.
Should have a couple in there, right?
I mean, come on, it's not official without a
No,
whereas.
no whereases. I
mean-
try to avoid whereases.
A little heavy on the parens.
Because I know you don't like it.
You went a little heavy on the parens.
So I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, next item is we had the surf school bid come in. We had one respondent, which was Flying Point. Subject to receiving a certificate of insurance, they bid $2,500 for the season, all in accordance with the resolutions and regulations we put together last year.
Okay,
Great.
great.
So
Okay.
accept
So
his bid.
I'll make a motion to accept the Flying Point Surf School bid to operate a surf school.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on the copier lease, we have the Village Hall copier lease with Rico that's expiring June 15th. We went out on the state bid list. It was a Kyocera machine, which is a better machine, it's a faster machine. I'd like to move forward with that lease. The Rico, we were paying $460 a month. The Kyocera is $237 a month for 36 months. And then there's a usage fee in there per copy, which is going to average out basically another $41. So way ahead of the game. And the nicest thing about this, after 36 months, we own the machine.
Okay, great.
Great.
All right, way to go, Calvin.
I'll be 83. 82, excuse
When
me.
we own the machine?
Yes.
No.
All right. Well, then at that point, you can't climb on top of it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Get a step stool.
I just need a
Okay.
motion to.
I'll make
allow
that
them to-
motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, next one is kind of a discussion item. At the last supervisors meeting, John Rustowski brought up an issue with regard to driveway aprons, where people are putting in Belgian block driveway aprons, and what they're doing is they're cutting into the paving of the road, and they're leaving that paving to the village to repair. So he would like us to bring up a discussion, I think Bill was there also on this, that we put in some kind of bond or some kind of security deposit before we grant these permits. Either
Okay.
$500, $1,000, whatever works, in order for these people to repair these gullies that are being created outside their aprons.
I think that's fair.
I do too.
Wait, this is the asphalt?
Need a motion?
You know, driveway.
Well, I guess
Driveway
that would be
aprons.
Would that be a code adjustment, Rick, or
What are we
is that a permit requirement?
Driveway.
I'm not familiar with Gary's request, so this is the first I'm hearing of it, so, I don't know if he's talking about permits he issues under.
It's not Gary, it's the building inspectors are giving the permits to do the driveway aprons. And then John Brastowski of the Highway Department, his problem is that when they cut into the street to do the apron, there's a gap of anywhere from 2 to 6 inches of paving that's been removed in order to put the apron in. And
That's why our code requires a permit from, Gary.
Well, that's a road opening permit.
Yeah, it's for any work that's done on the village
Curb cut.
right-of-way.
Right.
Well, if they get a permit, does the permit have like a little bit of a bond in there, or what? I mean, because we're talking about getting money from them for repair.
I don't remember if there was something written, when I don't know when I just see an item on the agenda for discussion, and I don't know what the background is, I don't have all these things off the top of my head anymore like I did when I was younger.
Well, I'm
Right,
not sure
I'll
they should
pull
be
the permit
cutting into
and,
the street.
Well, that's
Now,
what I'm
I
sitting
don't
here
understand
thinking.
either.
I don't know whether there might already be something in the code that allows Gary to require.
Well, they're supposed to fix it, but they're not doing it.
Well, they shouldn't be cutting
Well, they
into the street anyway, I don't think.
Well,
Well, it
Well, you
depends
know
on
what, they
somehow
might,
they
they
have to
might
put the
bring
base
it,
in
they're
for,
not bringing the Belgian block into the
Right.
street,
Yeah.
but they probably are cutting beyond it to get it in and whatever they're doing.
I mean, along
Concrete.
those lines, when
Whatever's happening is
before,
happening.
when there's work being done, and somebody was in here last year, a couple years ago, showing pictures, and the ruts that get caused on the grass, the side of the road from all the construction.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a condition that before the final approval is given for that house completion, that needs to be brought back up, seeded and so forth? And if so, wouldn't this kind of fall in those lines too? If there's any, because that qualifies as damage to village right away.
Well, some is new construction and some is existing.
Okay,
You know, like, let's say if you wanted to do yours, that's not new construction, that's a curb cut and you're putting in an apron.
okay.
You know, I mean, the building inspector can withhold a C of O until
For
all
new,
repairs are made
correct.
for new
All right, so
construction.
there
On
wouldn't
the other
be-
side, they don't have any,
There's no recourse for that, other than a fine or something, or I guess, or do we have, I mean, then what would be, you're right, so then what would be the recourse then?
yeah, that was withholding the C of O.
With new construction,
Right.
so, as just, now it's not, then
Right.
how do we?
It's it's wording that they're required, but where's
It
where's
was
your
my
recourse?
impression, but maybe sometimes my impressions are wrong, that when a curb cut permit is issued, that if it's going to involve any work on the village right-of-way, and most of the times they do, that you also need a permit from Gary. So I'm not sure who this request is coming from.
It's coming from John Brastowski of the Highway Department.
So
What
he's
I'll do is
basically
I'll pull
noticing
a
some
copy of the permits
deficiencies.
and show you the language on it.
Well, he's saying they don't fix it. They don't fix the road, and then the village has to fix the road. So
Well, then
we're
that's-
saying there should be some sort of money held so that,
So how do we
We can
either
fix
claw
the
back
road.
something
The
or
question
fine
is
them,
that-
or?
What triggers that to push it into a bond? Because my neighbor just redid their driveway, and they put Belgian block there. And I know that they did repair what they.
Right.
But I don't think that there was anything that triggered those guys
No, I mean, there
going
was-
into the building department to get any type of permit to do the work there. So I'm just trying to figure out where the process is that,
On
puts,
replacement.
yeah,
apron.
puts it in as something that ends up as a bondable issue.
Okay,
How do we trigger that?
right.
And
On existing,
on an
homes.
existing drive where there's no curb cut needed, and then just replacing the current driveway.
So are you saying, or are you implying
I
that they
think
don't
it
need a
still
permit to do
needs
that?
a
I still think you need a
permit
permit.
from-
Okay,
Anytime.
I call it from Gary, it's from the.
right, yeah.
Because, I mean, when we did, that law that we did a few years ago that Gary recommended, and we loosely call it a road opening permit, but it's not just a road opening permit, it's a permit for any work that's being done on a village right-of-way. And if you're doing a driveway apron or something, how can you do it without doing some work on the village right-of-way?
Right. Clearly, because most people go 3 to 8 feet on
And
their
if,
property.
and if Steve is talking about these conditions in a permit, he must be talking about the same permit that I'm talking about.
Right.
So if you send that, send me over a sample of
Okay.
what you have from John, and I'll take a look at the code to see if there's language in there already that gives them the power to require a bond. And if there isn't, then we're gonna need to amend the code.
Right, okay.
All right. And is that what John's getting at? Something
Yeah,
how we
exactly,
can-
because there's
Okay, great.
nothing, you can't,
Because he's seeing it happen too often, and he wants some way then. we
yeah, I
can-
say, I mean, I've driven around with it, he's showed it to me, but it's just, there's nothing that, there's no recourse.
Okay.
So that's it, it's just looking for that.
Okay.
Of course, counsel.
Just an update on Agawam. We've had a request for Wi-Fi from the Cultural Center with regard to the concerts and using machines and such. So Carl's installing that within a day or two. All of Agawam will have Wi-Fi available.
Okay, great.
Gary is requesting permission to go out to bid for our asphalt paving contract. We do this every 2 years. It's a 2-year contract, so he'd like to advertise it May 15th. Bid books available on the 16th with the bid opening on May 30th. It'll be a 2-year contract running June 1st, 2014 to May 31st, 2016. Roughly a value of $2 million, including drainage, obviously subject to whatever we want to spend, but we'll be up to that maximum.
Okay. So I'll make a motion authorizing the village to go out to bid in accordance with Gary Gillespie's email on asphalt bid.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And, next item is Hampton's Free Ride.
I had met with Chris and Stacy Diamond, who operate Hampton's Free Ride, and they came in and talked to me about a couple things. And one of the things that they wanted to do was place some signs in 4 places in the village to basically create proposed stops. I mean, one of the issues last year, and it's a nice service, and they really didn't have a place to say this is where we're stopping at. So they ended up getting stopped on Main Street, or and they were conscious of not trying to block traffic and safety issues, but they'd asked that we allow them to place 4 signs in the village so that they can do proposed stops. And we had quite a bit of activity last year, and really it kind of allows someone to park in one of our main parking lots and then we drove around the village, and people were able to look, and it was nice. So the one spot is by the Chamber of Commerce on that road, interest in the municipal lot. The other one is down by Agawam Park at the corner of Pond Lane and Job's Lane. One's that municipal lot behind West Main Street, and then one was over by Cooper's Beach. And then the second thing they talked about, where they have it in East Hampton, is a proposed charging station. And they were looking for the village to allow them to do that, but they didn't have, I'd asked them how they work with East Hampton on that, and they weren't able to answer all the questions, because I'm not in favor of them hooking up to the village electric to charge their cars for free rides. So, yeah, so, but I would like tonight to get permission from the board to allow them to install, they'll install them, they'll make them, they'll put them up, and they'll maintain them, these official stop signs for the Hampton's Free Ride at these 4 locations that I mentioned. So I'd like to make a motion on that.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next item is the Osher House situation. John Claus came into me this morning, had a call from PD last night that there were some kids in the house, and John went over there this morning to board it up. He looked inside, there's a dead raccoon inside. He says it's really in bad shape, very accessible to children getting in there, and feels that we should make some kind of decision with regard to demolishing that building. If somebody gets hurt.
We need to take it down.
Second.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Can we get money? Can we
Yeah.
get money from community preservation?
No. Well, we might be able to if we get,
To pay for the demo.
I know Gary was supposed to get some bids on that.
He tightened up the numbers today. He's looking at about $75,000 for
Wow.
demolition, removal, filling in the hole. It's also subject to certification that there's no asbestos in the building or lead.
Okay. So if I can get a copy of that, I can go to CPF Advisory Committee and ask for, take to Mary Wilson at the town and ask for them to help pay for that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And last,
God knows the village of Southampton has generated a lot of CPF money for it, so.
True.
Got that right.
And actually, that's part of what they say they do. If there's a
Yeah.
dilapidated building,
Yeah.
and when we purchased it, it was with the idea of taking those buildings down.
Yeah.
So many years ago. That's probably 8 or 9 years ago.
It's 9 years ago.
No.
Because it was like our first month on,
Yeah.
On the
It was
board
decided
here.
before we came in.
yeah, so,
I mean, we've tried to do it a couple times, but there was some ideas to
Yeah.
preserve something, whatever, but it's
And
just.
and once
it's
we
run its
have
course.
that, I think we really can go full speed ahead into planning what we're really gonna use that for, because it has to be used for parks.
right.
Right.
I have a lot of ideas, and I think it's just gonna be
Yeah.
great for
Well,
the community.
somebody's just going to get hurt in that.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
take that fence down in the middle, we can clean the whole place up, we can get it graded, it'll look nice. And, they've done a nice job of removing a bunch of dead trees in there.
Mhm.
And,
Clean it up.
yeah,
Beautiful. Just that gone alone is an improvement
yeah,
Right.
that's
visually.
true. That's true.
Right.
Okay.
Good, okay.
All right, and the last item is about 2 or 3 meetings ago, Danielle asked me to speak to the board with regard to when we hold tax sale, if the person that is bidding on the sale must be present versus sending a representative. And we had gone back to about 7 other villages, 3 of which do not sell it out to the public. They hold their certificates, but out of the 4 others that did respond, 3 said that they do allow a representative to be present, and 1 said they do not. Danielle would prefer that we do not have any it's the person themselves has to be there
Okay.
to represent, so it's up to the board to decide which way to go on that. Obviously, this year we didn't
Right,
sell to the public, but
right. Well, I
future.
followed Danielle's lead on that, there's a reason behind,
It's much cleaner.
yeah,
Mm,
so,
Makes sense.
okay, so do we need a motion on
I think
that?
that's just a policy. I mean, if
Okay.
we can do I'd probably be stronger to do a resolution on that, just so if somebody
Maybe we
does.
get something
do
written
that.
up in next meeting,
Yep.
we have a year to,
We got
do
plenty of
this,
time.
So we got plenty of time,
Right,
okay.
okay, that's it.
All right, comments from board members here, trustee Yaz,
I'm good.
good. Trustee Irving?
But just really to follow up on what we were discussing earlier, I think we do have an issue that's developing with a lot of the landscapers and the size of their vehicles. I mean, a lot of those vehicles are monstrous. Mainly, I think they're using them for storage, and they don't have a facility to keep any of their equipment at. But on some of the small roads, Nancy is so right, it's really become an issue. You got 2 of them from each other, sometimes you have 3 or 4, and it's very difficult to navigate, and some of those smaller lot areas don't have sidewalks.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it used
Also,
to be
it's
a
very
pickup truck.
dangerous for
Yeah,
bicycles.
people used to
Yeah.
just pull it off the,
Well,
it
and
didn't take up
yeah.
a lot of space.
And a lot of times in years past, you usually had a person that lived at the premise and all equipment was there. The other issue that is really difficult, I think, and it's more in the small lots, although it's evident in some of the bigger lots, is that they can't get the equipment in to build the foundations or to, in a lot of the tear downs, they can't get the equipment into the lot to do the tear down. So consequently, you'll drive down some of the roads and there'll be a big backhoe there, and we need to take a look at that, because all the neighbors' properties are getting run over and torn up, and everybody's putting their
True.
finger at each other. You know, so those are two areas I think we should take a close look at and address going forward.
Chief, would you like to talk about that?
It's like I was saying before, with the damage happening to the side of these roads from the construction, and sometimes I see it receded, and people put it, and sometimes it's not. You know. you
But
have-
they're
you have
working in the
streets.
road now. A lot of
Yeah.
the heavy equipment's just sitting right in our road.
Yeah, it's a problem. I mean, I drive down White Street a lot of days going to and from, and I get out and make guys move their stuff, but you know that's only I'm only on one street in that moment, so I think we do have to do that. I think we used to have guys trained in commercial vehicle enforcement because, like the heavy trucks,
Yeah.
some serious fines that you can write if their equipment isn't proper, and it's pretty tough to keep those pieces of equipment within the law. So most of them would, if they, of course, we wouldn't be able to, look at them unless they were violating the law.
Right.
But if they're violating the law, then we can do what we have to do. So get a little bit more training, maybe get the state police to help us, and because they have some experts, and make it a little tougher on them, and maybe it'll help itself.
Okay. So we'll take that, we'll call the state police and do some training with the guys, and then,
And then if there's a parking complaint, we'll have the guys that know what they're doing come down and take a look at the equipment.
Is there any way that we can send letters out to all of the major landscapers? I mean, I know there's a lot of them, but we should have a list of who they are and voice our concerns so that when they are parking on our narrow village streets or any of our village streets, that they're not to be parking side by side, that they have to make sure that there's enough clearance that a car can get around them. And if in fact, in other words, a warning, if in fact we find that you are doing this and putting the public in danger, that they will be fined.
Yeah, well, if they violate the parking rules, we can do it. If they don't, it's kind of one of those areas where you kind of,
But I think they might cooperate, I mean,
you would
they've
think
been
that
just
most of
doing
them
it
would.
and nobody's been saying anything, and maybe if we send a letter explaining what our concerns are,
it's
for a
usually,
while, they might be good about it.
it's not the owner of the company that's parking the,
right. I
Big
think it's
truck.
more, on site, because I'm afraid we sent the letter out to some of them, then other people didn't get it, then you'd have one guy coming in and say, I got a letter from you guys, but you didn't send it to ABC Landscaping.
Singled out.
With some of those vehicles, they've got to be overweight. I mean, there
yeah,
are.
so we're gonna, we'll do some work on it. And, that's one of the things that, in the past, I thought we should have done more of. It just, one of those things you can only do so much
Yeah.
with what you have, Especially, we get complaints of, like heavy truck traffic coming down Moses Lane. And it's tough for us to do anything about it because they used to run, I mean, there's training, but it's not kind of the training like what to look for, and it's more like drug interdiction oriented stuff. This is, what we're talking about is more technical about like the mechanical operation of the truck.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I'll look into that. And now we have some younger guys who would probably be interested in getting some training on that.
And I'm sure a lot of those landscaper trucks, none of them have CVOs.
Oh, plus, I mean, you just look at these trailers, and trailers are notoriously tough to maintain.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it's safety issue, the way they're parking, it's also a safety issue, the way they're operating.
Right. Plus, if your kid's riding his bike on Moses Lane, and
Pulls out in back of a trailer, and
one of the first calls I got when I was a young cop there was a fuel oil truck ran a little kid over. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Ford.
Yeah.
Ford days.
No, it was down up by Lee Avenue, but
Wow.
it's not something you really want to see when you're 23 years old. But
No,
no.
definitely
We're
not.
old.
Okay, thanks, Chief. I don't have anything else there.
No, it was just
Okay, great. Good point there. Great point. Nancy?
Do we want to talk about the valet parking?
Talk about it, yeah.
The Village of Southampton and other municipalities here received a letter from a family who I believe lives here, who's interested in doing valet parking in different municipalities. And of course, the question that came up, and I spoke to the mayor, we all received a letter in our boxes, was, well, if the public can't find a parking spot, how can a valet parking person find one? So then we started to think, since we have an issue with parking, especially on a rainy Saturday or cloudy Saturday or Sunday in the village, and last year it seemed so out of control because people were parking in spots that weren't even parking spots, maybe we could join or talk to some of the property owners that really have parking lots that aren't utilizing them on weekends, some of the office buildings that aren't open on the weekends, and either work with them to, insure them for that period of time, or to indemnify them, or somehow, some way. And since it would be just the valet person putting the car there until the person came back to pick it up, if we could work with them, such as maybe the school that has a new parking lot, that, they might let us use their parking lot. There's a couple of buildings on Hampton Road, the back end of the movie theater. And then I asked Mark, our mayor, where could a pickup point be? And we talked about down by Monument Square, if the valets were down there, they could take the cars there, and then they could be the pickup point. And I know it's done in other areas, and people love it, and I think it would free up some of our parking lots, and people get frustrated. They know it's crowded in town, and they won't come in because it's crowded in town, and if we had a service like that, I think it would help promote the restaurants. They wouldn't feel like they couldn't come into town because they wouldn't get a parking spot. They could have lunch and shop, and then not feel rushed, and then go back and have their car picked up for them. So I think it's something we should look into.
One of my concerns with that, though, is that somebody who does take initiative on their own to find a spot, and they're told they can't park in a public village parking lot because it's
that's why-
being used.
No.
I know you, but if there's
That's
not
why I'm
enough
looking to the
private,
private lots.
then it's, okay. But if that doesn't happen, then the solution is.
Well, if it
that's
doesn't
how-
happen, we can't do it.
Okay,
Because
that's-
I don't feel that you can take a section of our public lot
Exactly,
and
okay.
section off of valet parking. It has to be in another spot.
Okay, right, that was my main concern with that, okay.
So Nancy, you want to reach out to them, and anybody else would like to meet with them?
You and I
yeah,
will meet
with
them. Okay.
Okay.
And
Unless you wanna do
we'll have
it,
to
you
call
wanna-
the families.
With these guys, with the
Yeah,
two-
meet with those guys, so it's
Sure.
Jack and Bessel.
Yeah, Jack and Bethel.
Mark, didn't you want to bring up this?
Yeah, I'll bring that up.
Okay, great.
Bill, do you have anything?
Yeah, two things. Steve, if you would be kind enough, I wish you could give Jonathan another jiggle on that proposed meeting with the
Spoke to him
DEC.
Tuesday, he's gonna put something, he's
Okay,
out for,
right. Okay, make sure
surgical
Mark knows
procedure,
about
so-
it, and hopefully he can attend, and then John and Gary and
Mhm.
anybody else that you can think of, but summer is drawing near. The other thing, there's an interesting article in the paper today about that tragic accident out on the highway last Friday, and the thing that caught my eye, because this is something that I just, I'm a little bit of a bug about, but the highway was closed for 7 hours. There was a decedent involved, but the article tells you that he was pronounced dead at Southampton Hospital, so that the decedent was taken from the scene, and then there's only a bicycle and a Jeep involved. And I'm amazed, they talk about accident reconstruction team and so on. I'm going to try and find out at what point was the decedent gone. And if this went from 7:30 at night, we were lucky it happened when it did, because probably 75% of your traffic that's going back west is gone before 6:30 in the evening. But that means they were there till 1:30 in the morning with both directions closed and so on. And I just, somehow the town has got to solve this accident reconstruction business, because that's just crazy to over a sadly it's a tragic bicycle accident, but it's not as if there's no fuel spill, there's no debris field, there's no all the other things that you hear, and I don't think we've learned a blessed thing, by the look of it. So I'm going to look into it. I tried to call what's his name, the person at the press who wrote the article today, but I think he might have had the day off. But I'll talk to him and try and get as many details as I can. But again, I would like to just sit down. There's a lot of nice people on the town board, and just talk to them and say, darn, we got to come up, because if this had happened at 4 hours earlier, we're going to have another one of these things where we're backed up right to Glennon's or something like that in the town, or in the village rather. So,
Yeah.
Can I,
and one cheery thing is, we had, I don't know how many of you were aware that 3 or 4 weeks ago we had a pretty good downpour, and Lee Avenue flooded probably to 15 inches. They had to block off the road for probably 12 hours and so on, pump it out and all that. Anyhow, Barry went down there and found 3 holding tanks on to the south side of the drain in the road. They were 50% clogged with debris and mud and all that sort of thing. Pumped them all out. He just found another one which they were cleaning out yesterday and today. Also on the behind Knights, they're building a new house, and there's a certain amount of controversy and furor over this house because it's in a very low spot and they're raising the grade. I don't think they're going to the floodplain direction, but in any event, he has found something like 10 holding tanks on the east side of Lee Avenue and another 6 that we didn't even know were there. Apparently we don't have any maps that show what tanks were built whenever they installed the drain, but in any event, that deluge we had, I don't know if it was last weekend or something, 10 days ago, those 3 tanks that he had cleaned out, there wasn't a drop of, after a torrential downpour. I think they got 4.5 inches at night, something. So we got to pay more attention to these holding tanks and find them and clean them out. But there's something like 14 more tanks that he has established are down there that nobody's seen for God knows how long. Anyhow, we'll be happy if he can solve the problem.
Yeah.
But it
Well,
sure
it's-
worked recently. Other than that, it's time to
Can I
go
just,
watch the
Yeah.
draft.
well, a couple of quick things on Bill's original about the accident, and I figured that would come up at some point. And I'm going to give you a layman's perspective on it, because you're looking for answers, and you've asked them a lot. A lot of people have. I actually was at that scene at various stages throughout the entire evening, so the beginning, middle, end of it, not the very end of it. So, and yes, personnel were there from all different levels, from village, town, county, state, all doing their respective, and I'll get into and this kind of gets along, and I remember standing there discussing with a couple of the chiefs, saying, as I'm watching the diversion of the traffic, saying, here we go, this is a tragedy for one, on all levels, and the fact that's where the conversation should end. But it does have to go further, because people want to know, and I'm watching the traffic being diverted, and I'm like, here we go, this is going to bring up this question of what happens now when this, and part of the answer to that, and I've said it a million times, is that is just the way it is. And I'll get into why it is the way it is, because I've watched it as a layman. I'm going to put in layman perspective, all these guys doing their jobs. But also, fortunately, where that was, as opposed to the one by Lobster Inn, there were several ways to divert traffic here, especially
And I heard it
going
was
down.
well handled.
It was extremely well handled.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was the end of the day, and people heading westbound were clearly inconvenienced. Not as much so as the real bad one in front of Lobster Inn, because that was a complete shutdown.
Yeah.
This at least had a complete flow. There was, right from the get-go, a flow going around
Yeah.
down Sabonic, and a flow heading, so that helped. But watching how it happened, and what every department did, from the study of it, the clearing, and yes, there wasn't any major toxics spill or such, but waiting for the state police was brought in to do this reconstruction, setting up equipment in the perimeter, the fire department with their lights and trucks to light up, because now nightfall was coming. The crux of the traffic issue was around 5, 6, 7. At the end of the night, it was very light. So the traffic, people only inconvenienced around the tough time is when the accident happened, about 6 o'clock. That's usually when the stuff happens, because that's when everybody's in a rush to get home and not paying attention, unfortunately, to what's going on. So, but watching how the state troopers came in and did their reconstruction, and people always wonder, why didn't they open up this lane? I'm watching how the actual accident scene, because there was trace, the accidents began in one spot and the vehicle ended up over in a certain spot. So that entire area is considered, so, and not only that, trace of the bicycle and other things, and the little, as you see in television shows, the markers for evidence, little cones. So those are all over the place. And as I'm watching the state and the county walk around in a town, investigators, they're not just walking along those cones. They're walking 15, 20 feet away and taking pictures. So space is needed, and they need the space so they don't worry about some knucklehead speeding up the road and clipping them and making more. So I understand the frustration of a lot of people. Why did? Because I read them. The blogs were right out there saying, "Oh, I can't believe they shut down the road again." And, you know, to me, it's annoying to even see that, based on what happened, and how 2 young lives, and several, but lives were irreparably damaged by this. But to sit there and then second guess the professionals that are doing their job. I mean, you're only, we all get the same questions, and I appreciate you bringing it up. But, you know, from a layman, I saw what they did, to the point where at one point during the evening, somebody could have, and somebody did ask if they could open up one part of the western stretch, past Sunoco. But that stretch is being used by the trooper, which they call a friction test, where he started from one end of the road, sped, and then jammed on the brakes. That's to check the debris, anything. So part of the testing on the road. That was done several times. So somebody could ask, that's why that part was closed. Now, didn't know when that was actually going to happen, but that part needed to be open and accessible for that particular exercise. And that's one of several different things. Suffolk County DA was there to do their studies because, again, once it's a homicide, it's a death. It is unfortunately treated like a homicide. Now, again, I'm only regurgitating from being on that scene and asking these questions, and that's why, you know, from all the departments, I spoke with the fire, the police, I spoke to all these because out of curiosity. So when this question, which I knew inevitably would come up, and they continue to, and part of the answer is I'm talking to one of the town representatives. It is unfortunate. We live on an island with only a couple arteries to get in and out of here. When something of this magnitude happens, no, you're not going to see a lane opened up for the convenience of somebody getting home to watch a ball game or getting to work a little sooner. That is an unfortunate side effect. It's going to be blocked. There's a job to be done, period. And when that job is done, and it's not based on when the person is declared dead, it's clear where they are or not, is the scene is going on while that is still happening. So just because when the person is declared dead or not doesn't mean the scene ends or begins. It's all ongoing simultaneously. So, so again, I'm glad you brought that up because again, I actually, and there's a reason why I didn't stay the entire time. And yes, it did go that long. I feel bad for volunteer fire police who had to stay because I was listening to the calls. They were getting relief from North Sea because they were there till 1 in the morning and they had to stay there. So there was a lot of sacrifice going on for people at that scene doing their job, both paid and volunteer. Those are the people I'm personally concerned about. Whether I was inconvenienced getting to and from home, sorry, doesn't cut it.
Rich, when we had this meeting at the town, one of this accident reconstruction business is necessary, and I can everything you said, I understand. What I don't understand is that the personnel who conduct these things, God knows where they're coming from, but
It's either state or town or county.
I
the three
thought
levels.
that the town police department, I thought it was indicated at this meeting that they were going to get the kind of camera equipment, you need special equipment and so on.
Correct.
What I'm saying is the accident itself, removing the individual, you don't have a crashed oil truck or some damn thing like that, and to take 7 hours to take your photograph, you're causing the repercussions of it. Yes, you have to do it, but it's almost like they're coming from Poughkeepsie or something like that, the guys that are doing this. And I thought they talked at that meeting about they were going to buy the equipment and be ready to roll on a minute's notice, so that, because this was from a,
Again,
it's a sad accident
yes, no,
because
and,
of
and they were there,
the death.
and everybody was there in
Just
an
shouldn't-
expeditious manner. But again, the
Maybe they can
intersection
make me
had,
feel better. But I don't think it takes 7 hours to take your photographs. Yes, it may take an hour to put your little markers and all that, whatever it takes. But 7 hours, holy geez, and God knows if it, I've just seen too many of them, and I don't think they handle them the way they should be. And they are really, you talk from a health or safety issue, God knows who's stuck in traffic. We've seen these things that last 7 or 8 hours. We had the one where the night we had a meeting and your wife was going to Florida or some darn thing like that. I forget, Chief, but she was, whatever the story was. I would like somebody to tell me, the supervisor, whom I think is just wonderful, says that they're doing their best, but I'd like to see somebody tell me, give me a timeline. Who arrived? Who are we waiting for? When did they arrive? And if they're coming, it's that one story Bill Masterson told me. This is 6-7 years ago at this massive tie-up, that they were waiting for the coroner to pronounce the person dead, but the coroner couldn't get there because of goddamn traffic lines, and so they were like 4 or 5 hours waiting for this person
That's
to
an
get
old story,
there.
and that's from Bill. That's a long time ago. So
Yeah,
I don't,
it's always something. I know one thing, and
Doesn't apply.
there was talk of the fuel spill. I have the photographs of that accident that happened out by Lobster Inn, and you can't convince me.
The photos don't do it justice. That's a third party. It's not even evidence. You have to be there to see it. And
Well-
those are. I saw the same photos, and I also saw other photos from other angles. So I'm just saying, pictures
It
don't.
doesn't take 7
accurately-
hours to deal with something, if
Well,
you,
sometimes it does. My answer is yes. Sometimes it does. I know it's hard to
I almost
believe.
wonder if some of the guys is it overtime for somebody that
No,
that
it's
are they
volunteers.
dogging it?
There are volunteers there until 1 in the morning
Volunteers
doing
are getting
stuff.
screwed,
And people want to go home. I was talking to
Yeah.
Suffolk County DA. There are better places he would have rather been at 10 o'clock
well,
at night than.
I think we should at least go meet with them again and get an explanation, an official one of.
We try to
I'd
get
like the
some kind of-
timelines. When, who are we waiting for?
I get that,
and
but
how
I
long
just,
did it-
I think you can't, I think you need to be careful of who you're going after here and
I'm
the
not
people
going
just
after
doing.
anybody.
We're not going
I just
after,
want to
but-
improve.
but,
If
you know-
if you can improve, I want to improve, and I can't for the life of me figure out why accident reconstruction photographs have to take 6 hours.
Well, it's not just photographs. It was also interviewing witnesses, and there were different detectives, and when you have
You don't have to,
complicated
you don't
intersections.
have to do that in the middle of the highway. You can
Actually,
interview
well, yeah, that's
people
what you
off
do,
to
because
the
that's where it's
side,
happening
and,
before you send them home. That's exactly where it's done.
Anyhow, I'd
Well,
like to have another meeting with them
Yeah,
in a
but-
nice.
probably-
I'm not saying there's not discussion,
I think
but I
there's-
knew that this was gonna bring it right up to the topic, and again, I actually purposely witnessed it and stayed for certain points of it, so I could see firsthand that, I'm not saying there's no room for improvement, but I also, after speaking to these people firsthand, doing their job, that was a very complicated intersection, different lights, different ways, merging, left turns, crosswalks not, so that's all part of the, and I'm.
Somebody that works with me actually told me how they were diverted and so on, and it really was handled very, very
But that
well.
was fortunate because of the location of the
Although it
accident.
gets damn clumsy, too.
That worked only because of where it was, thankfully, but.
But I'm questioning the 7 hours part of it. I just don't think these things, particularly one like this,
Right.
this was as uncomplicated. I mean, it's terrible because somebody died, and we all know that. But anyhow, I'd love to talk to them and just
Okay.
have it explained, because we're gonna, this, this won't be the last.
No, it's definitely not, yeah. All right, yeah, so I just wanted to bring up, the Attorney General Eric Snyderman's doing a community forum on Tuesday, May 20th at 6:30 at the Suffolk County Community College in Brentwood. And these forums on environmental protection, labor rights, civil rights, healthcare, consumer fraud and protection. Been to a couple of these before. They're pretty good. You get a lot of information. And so I'm encouraging anybody who's interested in that to go out and attend that. Another thing is that I've got Gary working on the north end of Lake Agawam, a project there. It's he's proposed a walkway because it's all overgrown. The fence is broken down there. It looks absolutely awful. They did a phenomenal job cleaning up the memorial. And it's beautiful at nighttime if you have it, you see it all lit up and stuff. But now it's really put a focus in on this area right here. And I know that he met with InterScience and Steve Maresca. They're developing plans down there. We're going to try to go out for bid to do the work and clean that area up and basically build a little boardwalk. He's talked about this for years, but it's an opportunity for us to do something about it now, and I think it's great. So, and Park Trust to do a lot of the work and try to get some in-kind donations from people, and
Will the town
that-
participate in any of this?
probably not. I can go to the town, I know they've done a presentation in front of the town trustees. I can reach out to the town trustees to see if they would help us out with this, but I know they actually don't control their own money anymore, so it's with
I thought they got a slight stay on that, no?
I don't know what the deal is.
You don't
That's,
wanna know.
that's 116 Hampton Road, so I don't, I try to stay out of that building. And we talked about the Hamptons ride, so there'll be more information on this as it comes, and it should be a nice project to clean up that area, so I'm excited about that, so. Okay, with that, we had another public comment section. Anybody from the public would like to speak? Okay.
Did you mention the girls' track team?
Yeah, mention the girls' track team. They, go ahead.
I forget the numbers. Was it 7 undefeated? They
Yeah.
won the divisions. Girls track first time since 1977.
Yeah, they did I know our fire department did a big escort for them.
Escort Monday
And,
night they clinched it.
They took the,
So Southampton?
Southampton.
Girls
The
track
division,
took the,
yeah,
took the
they
division.
had-
Track team?
Track team.
girls' track team.
Our
It-
girls are
Great.
faster than your girls?
Well,
Pretty-
that they are.
And
Our
all
girls-
other, but
our
apparently it
girls are
was
the
a
fastest in the
complete
division, so.
complete contribution from the complete team apparently. So first time since '77, I
Super.
believe. Don't quote me on that. But
So, yeah, Eddie
Oh, that's
West
great.
is, Eddie West has done it, not Eddie West,
so I heard
what's
the
Mike
trucks
on his
going
name
through
right
Monday
now?
night.
But they've done a great job over there with that track team, and Justin Govins really did a lot of work to build it up, and
And the boys finished well too,
Yeah.
but not
Pretty impressive.
as the girls with since '77.
yeah, so it's great though. So congratulations to the girls track team, and thanks for bringing it up. So, anybody from the public would like to speak?
I'm here to get my sign approved for my building.
Oh, then, well,
It's
Oh.
in here.
that probably is gonna
The
be in front of the
ARB.
ARB.
Yeah. You're in front of the wrong board.
It was an animated service and it told me this is where I should go.
You're in the right place, but the wrong night.
What building is it? Your,
I've been here before, I've done this, I did this 12 years ago, it was the same building, same location. And I was in a different building, but I moved to another building in Watermill and, I've got the paperwork and I need to
Oh,
get
it's
this-
Watermill.
Watermill.
That's
Oh,
you should be in the
town.
town.
You should be in town.
No, that's
It's
not
a
in the
village.
village.
So you need,
Watermill has a board?
no.
No, no,
it's with
It's
the
in
town.
the town, it's in the
Town does.
town. So this is the village of Southampton. So you should actually be at Town Hall on 116 Hampton Road at Town Hall, instead of Village Hall.
Right then.
People in their
That's why I
building,
wanted to know what building it's,
their building
okay.
inspector at town hall can tell you when, who,
Yeah.
But like I said, the animated, recording,
Okay,
this is where I should go.
oh dear.
Sorry.
okay, all right, okay, thanks.
Thank you anyways.
Okay, so, with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters for village employees.
Second?
Second.
Favor?
Aye.